Hey, I just filmed that first video, so I'm going to film a second one about the prescribed titles. So I'm going to look at an exemplar where one of your classmates was able to raise his or her grade from a 2 plus 3 or 5 to a 3 plus 3. It still has some errors, but I want to see what we expect of you for the subsequent PT, where you guys are actually going to have an option of doing 3. So not everybody may choose the same. We're trying to broaden the scope a little bit. All right, so let me just switch the camera here and add a mic. All right, you can see in this exemplar that the first thing I kind of pointed out to the student is that he or she said, I agree with this argument for the following reasons. Well, one, following reasons would probably have a semicolon right after it because you would then be creating a list or a subsequent concept. But more importantly, in your junior year, we really want you to use I agree, I disagree, but it's easier just to state the knowledge question as a thesis. So how does knowledge add meaning, blah, blah, blah. Knowledge is commonly analyzed as characteristics, etc., etc., etc. You're going to have an introduction. Then, therefore, right before the Harlem Renaissance, the reference to Harlem Renaissance, the student should have written something like knowledge adds meaning, or therefore knowledge adds meaning and purpose to our personal life. Now, let's take a look at the actual example. The candidate points out that the poem deals with focal points of early civil rights movements and an impact of the personal lives of many individuals. Inherently, I understand that there's probably meaning in that, but not to everybody. And so the fact that this candidate has not directly addressed the concepts of meaning and purpose make this a pretty problematic statement. At the very end, I don't even know what impelled purpose and meaning does. I think you need to be a little bit more clear in some of your word choices. A lot of you guys are trying to force more complex language. Be simple. As such, both pieces of art impelled purpose and meaning. I don't know which one's purpose. I don't know which one's meaning. The meaning has not been explained. And so here, this paragraph really falls flat. And again, inherently, I understand that the civil rights is very important and meaningful to many people, and that it allow people a more purposeful way to both raise their status and station in life, and obviously the purpose of human rights in general. But none of that was actually explored in this paragraph. And so right now, in my mind, I'm saying, okay, this is probably going to be a C essay because the argument's just not set forth in terms of the concepts of the prescribed title. That would be meaning and purpose. You need to explain what the meaning is and then explain why that meaning adds to the knowledge that we're talking about. That's not done here. So let's read the second one. However, knowledge may not add meaning and purpose to life in some ways. Much more direct, much better. Doesn't need to say I disagree. Great. Following the same line, A-OK, no clue what that means. It becomes clear that R does not have a purpose. Okay, I almost stopped reading at this point because the person wasn't paying attention, but I pushed forward. Citing this contempt, what's citing the contempt? Just say it. Jackson Pollock used a unique drip style where there seems to be altogether a lack of meaning and purpose. Okay, well, that makes sense. Again, because the student is addressing meaning and purpose. By all accounts, it can be deemed knowledge. Okay, I don't know what that means. It can be deemed. Drip style can be deemed knowledge, no clue. Because it upholds the foundations. This is just wordy language. What does that mean that drip styles can be deemed knowledge because the drip styles uphold the foundations of what it means to be art? No clue. Convoluted, problematic. The intent of the artist, technical skill and response of the spectator. Okay, a little bit better. Though many consider it art, don't know who would not consider it art, who is the many, and thereby is considered knowledge. That's contradictory. A simple glance at the abstract paint splatter garners no meaning. Okay, wading through a lot of this convoluted language, I get to the point. Abstract paint garners no meaning. The artist might have had a purpose when designing the work, but it did not translate into the lives of the spectator. There is an inherent subjectivity and sometimes emotional distance between the art and the viewer that impedes the transference of meaning. Impedes the transference, I don't have a clue what that means, but I kind of get it. It is as if the spectator was going through a middleman to grasp the purpose, which would be ultimately distort the finite goals of art. As such, art creates meaning to some, but because of the spectorial distance, that's not even a phrase. That person's just making it up. It can be lost. That paragraph has a number of problems that I've already addressed, most of it being the wordiness of the paragraph. However, there is a clear connection to meaning and purpose. Had the prior paragraph dealt with meaning and purpose in similar fashion, this would have clearly been a stronger paper, probably a 6 or a 7 overall. But this paper right here, because of this paragraph, I think could earn a 3 for the argument and the knowledge issues. Now let's take a look at the last statement, last paragraph. So you want to then explain how meaning in one style of art is more powerful or deals with knowledge more than meaning in a second style of art. Let's see if the student does that. However, the original assertion regarding the knowledge question is a stronger one. Though a splatter of paint as presented in the Pollock example may not hold an inherent meaning, the mere aspect of existing creates purpose. The artist was part of an abstract blah, 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 blah. As such, is expanding. In short, although it may be at a glance seem meaningless, it adds to the overall purpose of its art and meaning. In the Harlem Renaissance example, the meaning was produced was clearly felt by the spectators. This is a little difficult to follow. I think what the person is saying that the meaning is is Pollock's place in the world of art, and the abstract expressionist seeking to subvert artistic norms, but really he or she is moving in a different direction than the argument. And then in the second one, people had much more of a, as the person put, spectorial connection. But I can see that there's a level of emotion. So I think what the candidate could have done better, what I would suggest if this were a senior year first draft, I would suggest to explore reaction and the way of knowing of emotion and how meaning and purpose can be different for different people because of tastes and things like that, but also because of the emotional impact of the art. So let me just read some of what I wrote. So again, the candidate earned a 2 plus 3 in the first attempt, and a 2 plus 3 means that the candidate let me just pull the rubric up. I should have had this ready to go. I apologize. Again, the 2 plus 3 says that there was really some knowledge questions, but the essay is largely descriptive with superficial or limited links to areas of knowledge and ways of knowing. Still very limited connections to ways of knowing, but inherently I can see that there's some reference to emotion. 3, some arguments are clear, supported by examples. Clearly there's examples, right? Langston Hughes and Jackson Pollock, Harlem Renaissance, and abstract expressionism, and are evaluated. Some counterclaims are identified. Counterclaims clearly there, so there's no way for the student not to earn a 3. So in this revision, I said your counter-argument explores the concepts of the PT well. However, your primary thesis does not explore the concept as well as necessary. I firmly believe that an essay that partially dealt with the knowledge issues you bring up may well earn a C or a low B in the senior year, but for our purposes, you will earn a 3 plus 3, a 6, an A. Again, it's because of this clear connection to the terms of the prescribed title. And so let's take a look at your next prescribed title, or titles, because we as a crew, a TOK crew, came up with 3 that we think you should use. And what I did is all this introduction, if you still need it. What I did is I offered some tips. And so in yellow, I highlighted the key terms. This is definitely not something we would have done if we were still in class, but I want to make sure you guys are attacking the key terms of each of these prescribed titles. Now actually, it should say choice of 3. I apologize. Here we go. Yeah, sorry. So the choice of 3. So the production of knowledge is always a collaborative task and never solely a product of the individual. How much is that true in terms of Einstein's theory of relativity, or Jonas Salk and the polio vaccine when he just left his lab in a mess and came back and saw what had occurred in the petri dish? What about artists? Do artists really collaborate? What about the Manhattan Project? You know, thinking about Dr. Fauci and his team and trying to attack COVID-19, et cetera, et cetera. Where is knowledge produced collaboratively and then individually? And looking at this, the always is the key. So agree, disagree, agree to some extent, disagree to some extent. The production of knowledge is always a collaborative task, is your agreement. Is not always, is your disagreement. Is sometimes a collaborative task. And is more often a collaborative task and rarely a product of the individual. Play with the terms in order to agree, disagree, or agree to some extent, disagree to some extent. The key elements here being collaboration and individual work. So the second one is the production of knowledge requires accepting conclusions that go beyond the evidence for them. Well, evidence is a key kind of knowledge issue or knowledge concept. Do we have to have evidence for all of our ideas? What is production of knowledge? I mean, is the production of knowledge just thinking, or is the production of knowledge something that is actually a product? Is it something that I bring to market? Is it a theory? You know, what is that? What does that mean? And then how do we accept conclusions? What if we accept conclusions that we don't have evidence for? You know, I deal concepts of faith work here. Again, I go back to gravitational waves. I think I mentioned in class, 100 years later, we found out that Einstein was completely correct. He had no evidence. The evidence came in September of 2016. Oh my gosh. Please don't take my examples. But again, you didn't directly address key terms in the PT. For most of you, didn't directly address meaning and purpose. So here I'm trying to get you guys to actually answer some of these questions, the value of accepting conclusions without evidence. The last one is tricky. And to be honest, Mr. Hanlon was the one who proposed this because we thought that this would be good for some of our students who wanted to kind of stretch their minds a little bit. I highly advocate that you do not reference art. Just because Picasso is the person quoted doesn't mean that you should immediately jump to art. But the question asks you to explore this idea with reference to two areas of knowledge. Others have seen what is and asked why. I have seen what could be and asked why not. So here, clearly, I think there's some level of concept of possibility, potential, imagination, theory, thinking. You know, how do we create ideas in our mind? How do we create new knowledge for ourselves? And so with that idea in mind, you would begin your argument on the next page. I'm again looking for 3 paragraphs. That would be a first section where you have your claim, a second section where you have your counterclaim, and then a concluding paragraph where you have your synthesis or the rebuttal. Why is your claim stronger than your counterclaim? Or why is your thesis stronger than your antithesis? I hope this is a good explanation. Again, the essay I showed you is not the strongest, but it clearly works for a junior level essay to earn an A. Thanks a lot, and if you need any help from me, I'm here for you. I miss you guys. Stay safe, stay sane.